The rescue ship Endeavour had been searching the outer rim for 3 standard cycles when they received the distress beacon. Captain Maya Torres expected another routine salvage operation, perhaps a merchant vessel caught in an asteroid field, or pirates with faulty life support. What she didn't expect was the sprawling complex of biodomes floating in the void, its alien architecture gleaming like a jewel against the stars. "Biosignatures are off the charts," reported her science officer, Ben Carter, his fingers dancing across holographic displays. "I'm reading thousands of different species." "This is massive, Captain." The structure was indeed enormous, easily the size of a small moon. Crystalline spires twisted skyward from the central hub, connected by gossamer bridges that pulsed with bioluminescent energy. Gardens of impossible flora cascaded from floating platforms, while creatures Maya couldn't begin to classify soared between the towers. "It's a zoo," she whispered, the realization hitting her like a cold wave. The biggest zoo in the galaxy. The distress signal led them to a docking bay that seemed designed for vessels much larger than their modest rescue ship. As they disembarked, Maya noticed the artificial gravity felt slightly heavy, and the air carried scents both floral and metallic. The walls were covered in flowing script that hurt to look at directly, the written language of the Keepers, the galaxy's most advanced civilization. Their guide was waiting, a tall, ethereal being with skin like polished pearl and eyes that held the depth of ancient oceans. The Keeper spoke through a translation device that rendered its melodic tones into flat mechanical words. "Welcome, rescuers. I am Overseer Lux. We have a situation that requires your expertise with primitive species." Maya bristled at the description, but held her tongue. The Keepers were notorious for their condescending attitude toward younger civilizations, but they were also incredibly powerful. If they needed help, it was serious. Lux led them through corridors lined with observation windows. Maya glimpsed creatures from 100 worlds, some she recognized, others that defied imagination. Beings of pure energy danced with creatures made of living crystal. Aquatic giants swam through massive tanks while fire sprites flickered in specialized containment fields. "Your species is not unknown to us," Lux continued as they walked. "We have cataloged humans extensively. Your kind shows up in the oddest places, traders, explorers, sometimes refugees. Most adapt well to our care facilities." Maya stopped walking. "Care facilities?" "Of course. When we encounter primitives lost in space, we naturally provide them with appropriate habitats. It would be cruel to simply abandon them to the void." The implications hit Maya like a punch to the gut. "You're keeping humans as pets." "We prefer preserved specimens. Their natural habitats are so limited, so fragile. Here, they can live full lives without the stresses of their violent civilizations." Ben grabbed Maya's arm, his face pale. "Captain, the distress signal, it's not from their systems. It's human-made military encryption." Maya's blood ran cold. Someone was trapped here, and they were calling for help. The thought of her own species caged like animals in this beautiful prison made her stomach churn. But there was something else, something that made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. In her years of military service, she'd learned to recognize the signs of a trap being sprung. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. HFY Chronicle Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi, tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. "Show us the human," Maya said, her voice deadly quiet. Lux's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "I'm afraid that won't be possible. The specimen has become problematic." The journey to the human habitat took them through the heart of the zoo. Maya noticed the security measures were subtle but extensive energy fields that could be activated instantly, automated systems that tracked their every movement and Keeper Guards positioned at strategic intervals. This wasn't just a zoo. It was a fortress. The human arrived 12 cycles ago, Lux explained as they rode a transport pod through a tunnel of living crystal. A solo explorer, we believe. His vessel was damaged beyond repair, life support failing. We saved him. Saved him, Maya repeated, tasting the bitterness of the word. Indeed, we provided him with an ideal environment, a recreation of his homeworld's forests, clean water, abundant food. He should have been grateful. Ben leaned forward. Should have been? Lux's pearl-like skin rippled with what might have been annoyance. Instead, he became aggressive, destructive. He somehow learned to manipulate the habitat systems, causing cascading failures throughout this entire sector. We were forced to increase security measures. The transport pod emerged into a vast chamber dominated by a single massive habitat dome. Maya's breath caught in her throat. Inside was a perfect replica of an earth forest towering oaks and pines, a crystal-clear stream, even simulated weather patterns that cast realistic shadows across the artificial landscape. But something was wrong. The trees bore scars deep, gouges in their bark. The stream had been diverted into an intricate pattern that looked almost like circuitry. And there, barely visible among the foliage, were structures that definitely weren't part of the original design. Where is he? Maya demanded. Lux gestured to a monitoring station where several keepers worked frantically at controls. We lost visual contact 4 days ago. He disabled the observation drones and created electromagnetic interference that blocks our sensors. We believe he may be attempting to damage the containment systems. Maya studied the habitat more carefully. Those weren't random scratches on the trees. They were carefully placed cuts, designed to weaken specific load-bearing points. The diverted stream wasn't just pretty. It was creating erosion patterns that would undermine the dome's foundation over time. And those structures hidden in the forest canopy looked suspiciously like camouflage shelters, positioned for maximum defensive advantage. He's not trying to damage the containment, she realized. He's turning it into a weapon. The words had barely left her lips when alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Emergency lights bathed the chamber in pulsing red as automated voices spoke in the keeper's flowing language. What's happening? Ben shouted over the noise. Lux was conferring rapidly with the technicians, its pearl-like skin now flickering with patterns of distress. Impossible. The habitat's environmental systems are cascading. The temperature regulators, atmospheric processors, gravity generators, they're all going offline in sequence. Maya watched as the forest inside the dome began to change. The artificial weather patterns were intensifying, creating winds that bent the trees at impossible angles. The stream was flowing faster, carving deeper channels. And in the distance, she could see small explosions as hidden charges detonated with surgical precision. He's been planning this for 12 cycles, she whispered in awe. He turned their perfect prison into a demolition charge. Through the chaos, a figure emerged from the forest. Tall and lean, with long hair and a beard that spoke of years in captivity, he moved with the confident stride of someone who had just completed a masterwork. In his hands was a crude but effective communication device, clearly built from salvaged zoo equipment. The figure looked directly at Maya through the observation window and smiled. Then he activated his device. Static filled the air for a moment. Before a human voice, rough from disuse but unmistakably determined, cut through the alien emergency broadcasts. This is Commander Jake Mills, Earth Defense Force. If you're receiving this, then my new friends here have been lying to you. This isn't a rescue, it's a jailbreak. Maya felt a fierce pride surge through her chest. 12 cycles alone in an alien zoo, and this human had never stopped fighting, never stopped planning. He'd turned their own advanced technology against them and was about to bring down their entire operation. How? Lux whispered, its voice filled with something that might have been fear. Maya smiled grimly. You made a mistake. You thought you were keeping a pet. But you were actually keeping a human. The habitat dome shuddered as another series of controlled explosions rocked its foundation. Through the transparent walls, Maya could see Commander Mills moving with practiced efficiency, triggering systems he'd spent years learning to manipulate. The artificial forest was transforming into a weapon of unprecedented sophistication. Stop him, Lux commanded the technicians. Override the environmental controls. We can't, one of the keepers replied, its voice harmonizing with panic. He's created feedback loops in the quantum matrix. Every time we try to input a command, the system interprets it as confirmation to continue the cascade. Maya watched in fascination as Mills disappeared into a camouflaged bunker he'd constructed beneath an artificial waterfall. Moments later, the dome's gravitational field began fluctuating wildly. Trees that had stood for 12 cycles suddenly became projectiles, launched by carefully calculated gravitational anomalies toward structural weak points Mills had identified. Magnificent, Ben breathed. He's turning their own technology into a cascade failure that will tear apart their entire facility. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just one human escaping from a zoo exhibit. This was systematic. Warfare conducted by someone who understood the enemy better than they understood themselves. Mills had been patient, observant, and brilliant. While the keepers saw him as a primitive specimen throwing tantrums, he'd been conducting the most sophisticated intelligence operation in galactic history. The damage is spreading beyond the habitat, another technician reported. The cascade is affecting adjacent sectors. We're losing containment on exhibits 7 through 15. Through the observation windows, Maya could see the results. Creatures from a dozen worlds were escaping their exhibits as environmental systems failed. The bioluminescent walkways were flickering and dying. Emergency bulkheads were sealing automatically, trapping keepers in isolated sections. How long did you say he's been here? Maya asked. 12 cycles, Lux replied, its pearl-like skin now pulsing with rapid distressed patterns. 12 years to study your technology, learn your language, understand your psychology. Maya shook her head in wonder. You didn't capture a primitive you. Gave a human military officer 12 years to prepare for war. Mills' voice crackled through the communication system again. Captain Torres, I'm reading your ship's signature in the docking bay. I hope you're here for extraction, because we're about to have company. Maya spun toward Lux. How does he know my name? The keeper's ancient eyes held something Maya had never seen before: genuine fear. The communication array. He must have accessed our records, our intercepts of your transmissions. He knows everything we know. The facility shuddered again, more violently this time. Through the massive viewing windows, Maya could see entire sections of the zoo detaching from the main structure. The beautiful crystalline spires were cracking, their bioluminescent energy patterns failing in cascading waves. The whole structure is coming apart, Ben reported, consulting his scanner. Whatever he's done, it's not just affecting his habitat, it's a chain reaction that's destroying everything. Mills' voice returned, calmer now. I've been monitoring keeper communications for 8 cycles. I know about the breeding programs, the specimen trading, the cultural preservation, facilities on 16 different worlds. This zoo is just the beginning. They've been harvesting sentient beings across the galaxy. Maya felt her blood run cold. The keepers weren't just keeping a few lost travelers. They were running a galactic-scale operation, treating entire civilizations like livestock. The thought of how many humans might be trapped in facilities like this one made her sick. Commander Mills, she called into her communicator. This is Captain Torres. We're here to get you out. Negative, Captain. Extraction isn't the mission anymore. I've accessed their central database. I know where every facility is located, every species. They've captured every world they've stripped of its people. We're not just rescuing one human, we're shutting down their entire operation. Another massive shudder ran through the facility. Maya could see escape pods launching from various sections as keepers abandoned their posts. The beautiful, impossible zoo was becoming a debris field, and Mills was at the center of it all, conducting the destruction like a master symphony. Besides, Mills added, and Maya could hear the grin in his voice, I've got a ride. Through the chaos, Maya saw something that made her jaw drop. Rising from the center of the collapsing facility was a ship not human, not keeper, but something else entirely. It was ancient, elegant, and clearly built by a civilization far older than either of theirs. The keepers weren't the first to build zoos, Mills explained. They just took over when the architects disappeared. I've been restoring their original ship for 6 cycles. Turns out, they left behind more than just pretty buildings. The ancient ship rose through the collapsing superstructure like a phoenix emerging from flames. Its hull was made of some material that seemed to shift between metal and living tissue, and energy patterns flowed across its surface in ways that hurt to contemplate. Maya realized she was looking at technology that made the keepers advanced. Systems seemed primitive by comparison. Impossible, Lux whispered. The architect vessels were destroyed millennia ago. The historical records confirm. Your historical records lie, Mill's voice interrupted. The architects didn't disappear. They evolved beyond the need for physical form. But they left behind contingencies, fail-safes for civilizations that would abuse their gifts. I've been learning their language, understanding their purpose. The facility's collapse was accelerating. Entire sections were breaking away and tumbling into the void, taking with them exhibits that had housed creatures from across the galaxy. Maya watched in horror as some of the containment fields failed, exposing helpless beings to the vacuum of space. The creatures, then said, voicing her thoughts, they're going to die. No, Mills replied firmly. Watch. The architect's ship began to glow with an inner light that pulsed in complex patterns. As it passed near the failing exhibits, Maya saw something extraordinary happen. The escaped creatures weren't dying in the vacuum. They were being enveloped in protective fields of energy that seemed to anticipate their every need. Aquatic beings found themselves in bubbles of their native water. Fire creatures were surrounded by controlled plasma fields. Even the most exotic specimens were being rescued by technology that understood their needs better than they understood themselves. The architects built the first zoos, Mills explained as his ship maneuvered with impossible grace through the debris field. But theirs were different. They were sanctuaries, places where species could evolve and grow without interference. The keepers corrupted that vision, turned it into something ugly and possessive. Maya watched as the architect's ship began drawing the rescued creatures into its hull through some kind of matter-energy conversion process. They weren't being captured, they were being offered sanctuary, and Maya could somehow sense their gratitude and relief. How many? She asked. 17,412 individual beings from 637 species. Mills replied immediately. I've been cataloging them for years, learning their needs, understanding their origins. The architect's ship has enough space and resources to sustain them all while we find their homeworlds. Lux was frantically working at a control panel, its pearl-like skin now showing patterns Maya had never seen before. Desperation mixed with rage. You don't understand the scope of what you're destroying. The preservation protocols, the genetic archives, the cultural databases, they represent millions of years of careful curation. Curation, Maya repeated. Is that what you call kidnapping? We saved them from extinction. From the chaos of their primitive civilizations, we gave them peace, security, purpose. Mill's laughter echoed through the communication system. You gave them cages. Beautiful, comfortable cages, but cages nonetheless. The architects understood something you never did. Intelligence isn't meant to be preserved like a museum piece. It's meant to grow, to change, to make choices. The ancient ship was now moving toward the Endeavor, its massive bulk dwarfing Maya's rescue vessel. As it approached, she could see patterns of light playing across its surface that seemed to communicate directly with her mind. The ship wasn't just rescuing the zoo creatures, it was inviting Maya and her crew to join something larger, something that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Captain Torres, Mills' voice was serious now. I need you to transmit everything you've seen here to Earth Command. The Keepers have facilities on dozens of worlds, holding thousands of humans and millions of other beings. This was just the beginning. Maya looked at the readings on her screens. The Keeper facility was completely destroyed now, reduced to expanding clouds of debris and energy discharges. But the ancient ship continued to pulse with life, carrying its rescued cargo toward an uncertain but hopeful future. What about you? Commander, are you coming home? There was a long pause before Mills answered. I've been gone for 12 years, Captain. I've learned things that would take lifetimes to teach. The architect ship has work to do, beings to return to their homes, Keeper facilities to shut down, wrongs to set right. I can't abandon that responsibility, Maya understood. Mills had become something more than just a human military officer. He'd become a guardian, a protector of all the helpless creatures the Keepers had stolen from their lives. The thought of him out there, using architect technology to free the galaxy's prisoners, filled her with a fierce pride. Besides, Mills added, and she could hear the smile in his voice again, someone needs to teach the galaxy that humans don't make good pets. 6 months later, Maya stood on the bridge of the Endeavor as they approached Earth's orbital station. Behind them, in perfect formation, flew 17 other rescue ships, all carrying beings that Mills and the architect vessel had liberated from Keeper facilities across the galaxy. The operation had grown beyond anything Maya could have imagined. Incoming transmission from Admiral Chun. Ben reported, the holographic display activated, showing the weathered face of Earth's Defense Command. Captain Torres, I've reviewed your reports. I have to ask, are you certain about the numbers? Maya nodded grimly. Confirmed, Admiral. 237 Keeper facilities across 42 systems. They were holding approximately 500,000 humans and nearly 3 million other sentient beings. Commander Mills has been systematically dismantling their entire network. The scope of the Keeper's operation had been staggering. For millennia, they had been abducting members of developing civilizations under the guise of rescue and preservation. Their beautiful zoos and cultural centers were actually prisons designed to keep entire species from reaching their full potential. And the architect ship? Still active, sir. Mills has made contact with 16 different species whose people were held by the Keepers. They're forming some kind of alliance, a mutual protection pact against civilizations that would treat intelligence as property. Through the viewport, Maya could see the ancient vessel hanging in space near Earth's moon. It had grown since their first encounter, somehow incorporating technology and resources from every world it had visited. The ship was no longer just a rescue vessel, it was becoming something unprecedented, a mobile sanctuary that could defend the galaxy's vulnerable civilizations. Captain, Ben said quietly, we're receiving a transmission from the architect ship. Mills' face appeared on the display, but Maya barely recognized him. The years of captivity had changed him, but the months of freedom had transformed him into something extraordinary. His eyes held depths that spoke of communion with technology beyond human comprehension. And when he smiled, it was with the confidence of someone who had seen the universe's true potential. Hello, Maya. I wanted to thank you before we head out to the Outer Rim. The Keepers have facilities there that have been operating for over 1,000 years. Jake, Maya said, using his first name for the first time. When will you come home? Mills considered the question seriously. I am home. This ship, these rescued beings, this mission, it's what I was meant to do. The architects understood. Something that took me 12 years in a cage to learn. Home isn't a place, it's a purpose. Around him, Maya could see the bridge of the architect ship, populated by beings from a dozen different worlds. Former prisoners who had chosen to stay and help with the liberation effort. They worked together with a harmony that transcended species, united by their shared experience of captivity and their determination to prevent others from suffering the same fate. The galaxy is changing, Mills continued. The Keeper's authority was built on the assumption that primitive civilizations needed their guidance. We've proven that assumption wrong. Intelligence doesn't need to be guided, it needs to be free. Admiral Chun leaned forward. Commander, on behalf of Earth Defense Command, I'm formally requesting that you consider returning to active duty. Your experience with Keeper technology and architect systems could be invaluable. Mills shook his head. With respect, Admiral, I'm already on active duty. I'm protecting humanity by protecting all intelligence. The Keepers weren't just keeping humans in zoos, they were keeping the entire galaxy from evolving beyond their control. The transmission began to fade as the architect ship prepared to jump to hyperspace. Maya realized she was witnessing history, the moment when humanity truly became a galactic civilization, not through conquest or expansion, but through the simple act of refusing to be caged. Captain Torres, Mills said as his image flickered, tell Earth Command that they don't need to worry about humanity's place in the galaxy anymore. We found it. We're the species that breaks cages. The architect ship disappeared in a flash of light that seemed to carry with it the hopes and dreams of every being that had ever been trapped by those who claimed to know better. Maya stood at her viewport for a long time afterward, watching the stars and thinking about the man who had spent 12 years learning to be free. Somewhere out there, Jake Mills was teaching the galaxy that intelligence couldn't be contained, courage couldn't be tamed, and humanity, true humanity, would always find a way to break the chains that others tried to place upon it. The zoo was gone, but the guardian it had created would protect the stars for generations to come. In the depths of space, ancient technology hummed with new purpose, carrying former prisoners toward a future where no being would ever be kept as a pet again. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about the species called human. They didn't make good specimens, but they made excellent liberators, and somewhere among the stars, Jake Mills smiled as he plotted course for another Keeper facility, ready to teach them once again that humans, all humans, were meant to be free.